record on cloud. Hello, Grisel. Nice to see you again.
Hello, Patricia.
Okay, so we have moved over from live stream over to a recorded version of our interview with one another. And we want to invite women who are facing a crossroads as they approach or as they return 60 to listen to some of the insight that Grisel has as someone who works with high potentials and people who have, seasoned professionals who are looking at a career change. And that might be you in 2023. It's exciting to know that at these crossroads, we have more choices than ever. It is a bit of a scary time, though. It's a scary proposition to make change at this stage in our life, but it's also exciting. We have an opportunity to set a new course for fulfillment. And sometimes that means changing our careers. So in my conversation today with Grisel Scarantino, we will explore what you need to know about changing your career and possibly setting that new direction in life after 60. Grisel shares how you can be empowered to see all the beautiful possibilities and create your own unique path that gets you to the heart of what matters most to you. Grisel helps seasoned professionals like you deepen the value that you derive from your life, particularly when it comes to your work. Grisel believes that every person deserves to live a joyful, healthy, authentic life. And Grisel, you and I have different ideas on work-life balance. So I'd like to invite you, Grisel, to share your interpretation. What do you mean when you talk about work-life balance with your clients?
Thank you, Patricia. Well, for me, work-life balance is about being able to enjoy the life that you're working so hard to support when you're out of work. So, and I use that term work-life balance, but sometimes it's more like a work-life blend, right? Or a work-life flow, because it's impossible for us to compartmentalize work and our personal life sometimes. But there are times, for example, when we're on vacation or when we're having family time, for example, right, where those moments, those instances, those circumstances deserve for us to be fully present in them so that we can cherish the joys that come from our relationships with our family or with our friends. It's really hard to do that if people are stuck in a situation at work that is draining their energy, is something that they can't turn off in their mind and just kind of step away from it so that they can be present in those moments and enjoy their personal time. So for me, that's the notion I'm referring to when I talk about work-life balance. I'd like to hear a little bit about yours, though, if that's okay.
Okay, but I want to acknowledge what you said about work-life flow, because yes, I do agree with that, especially for so many of us where we get our energy from work as well. We love our work so much that it's not about, like you saying, put it in different compartments. I grew up with the work-life balance as something that women in particular could do. And if we didn't, then there was that feeling of we're not doing enough. And so it drove us to do even more. So that put us out of balance completely. When I talk to my clients about balance, and I love that flow, I'm going to use that in the future. I used to use integration, but the flow, I like the whole sentiment of the flow. But when you're trying to balance something, you've got work here and you've got life here, and we're given the message that we're supposed to balance those two things. Well, as soon as something happens over here, naturally, this is going to go out of balance. So going back to what you were talking about, the energy, it takes so much energy to try and get things in balance and keep in there. And actually, it's something that we just cannot do. It's not possible. So again, that flow, I'm going to picture that more often now about, yes, I flow into work because it sustains me. I love what I do. But there's times when I want to flow out of work so that what work gives me, and I guess you'd say the benefits of income, the benefits of relationships, I can then transfer that into being very present with those people who are really important to me. So thank you for asking me about my interpretation. I think the two of us have done a really good job of that.
Agreed.
So in your extensive work with seasoned professionals, what reasons do you see that leads people to approach a career crossroads, what you call a career crossroads, and what I call a life crossroads? So what reasons do you see?
Well, there are a few. I'll just talk about the ones that are the most common. So one is where people sometimes early on in their career, they're offered a job, right? They're inexperienced. They don't have much that they can show professionally on their resume. They're offered an opportunity and they take it. And then from there, they walk down the paths that open up from that opportunity. But sometimes that opportunity wasn't necessarily a good fit for them in the first place. Right. And so then where they grew from there, with other opportunities that were presented to them, they took those in the spirit of career advancement, but it was never something that they really felt connected to, you know, or that they felt that they were contributing to something that was bigger than themselves. And so then after a while, after years, sometimes decades of, 2 or 3 decades later, they turn around and they're looking at their career and they say, I just don't know if I made the right choice in the beginning. And
yeah, that's like that analogy of climbing the right ladder, right? Like what ladder are you going up? When we talk about the corporate ladder, do you find that happens? Like, I know you work with both men and women. Do you find that happens mostly with one or the other? Like, who suffers from that the most, do you think?
That one's hard to say, because I find that the majority of my clients are women. And it's not because I'm out there saying that I work particularly with women, but women are the ones that make that realization, and they recognize that they need some assistance to make a change when that change is necessary, more often than men, I've found.
Okay.
So I don't know. However, I have worked with men in the past, and what happens with what I've seen in common with them is that they have chosen a career path based on which path seemed to have the most earning potential.
Yes.
And then they look at those different options, they choose one and they go in that direction. But after a while, they find that they can't stomach the idea of continuing to do that same type of work long term.
Actually, that brings up another concept that I talk about, and that is about chasing the money. And yes, sometimes we go into careers knowing what to expect in the way of remuneration for that career, and get stuck on chasing that money, even in chasing promotions to get more money. And like you have said, that sometimes that will take us in the wrong direction, right? Well, maybe not the wrong direction for earnings, but definitely wrong direction away from who we are truly ourselves and what we do find fulfilling. So yeah, I'm glad that you said it that way, because I was able to add that other little twist about like not chasing the money. Okay.
Thank you for that. And another reason that I find is a common reason is, especially when people are further down in their career path, they enter a season of their life where they just, their motivations, their wants, their needs are just different than they were earlier in their career.
That's a great point, to talk more about, especially the different phases of our lives. And let's talk about women in particular, because we know that women can easily or are easily led into going in and out of the workforce, right? Especially if they are building a family, if the expectations are there. They may come out of the workforce for a while and then go back into the workforce, and they may have a desire. The needs at that time, again, is more about income rather than what is going to be fulfilling. Now, there's that other phase of life too, that you and I are very familiar with. When we are diagnosed with critical illness, such as cancer, that's a very different time. And would you be comfortable sharing your experience and perhaps how you became enlightened around your own work, what's important to you and your life?
Thank you. Yes, I would. So for me, before my cancer diagnosis, which, by the way, I'm healthy, I'm cancer-free now, but it was a scary time when I was diagnosed. And before my diagnosis, I thought that when I envisioned career success for myself, I envisioned being at a lot of executive meetings, wearing sleek suits, my hair slicked back, briefcase all the time. That was me, right? In my mind. But then when I was diagnosed and I was looking at the possibility of my life being over, there was this tremendous reassessment that happened inside of me of what is important to me in my life. And it wasn't carrying around a suitcase and dressed in a suit all the time. It was not that.
Yeah.
It was the people that are important to me in my life and my relationships with them and the experiences that we had together and the life experiences that I had, that I was going to have before my time was up on this planet. And so that the clarity that came, it was a blessing in disguise. My diagnosis was a blessing in disguise because it brought me tremendous clarity. And I realized that I needed to make some changes in my career, which was I was and continue to be doing work that I love. I love this work. My work was slightly different before. Nonetheless, I loved it. However, I was eating, breathing, and sleeping work. I was.
Was that working for other people as well? I think there's an important element that creeps up on us, is like, who are we doing this work for? And, part of our audience is women who are executives. And so their crossroads might be coming now because of what we're seeing, ageism and the double-edged sword of being a woman and aging in the workforce, right? And so I appreciate that you say, like, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. Some of us work so long to build other people's businesses or build other people's lives that when that crossroads come, it might not be how you want it to come. It might be a shock, but taking the time to think about, okay, how about me working the way I want to work? And exactly to reply to what you were saying, like, I didn't feel like getting on airplanes anymore. And like, it was exciting at one time, but I did not feel like doing that anymore. And I thought, why am I living my life and work to get on airplanes, to go and help somebody else build their business, right? And so the realization for me is that I want to build something for myself. I already had my own business, but I wanted to build more of my business for myself by helping whom? Other women, because I love working with other women. So I was going to ask you about ageism. Are you seeing that creep up for some of your clients, and that's why they're coming to you, because they're at that crossroads?
I do. When they have, as I say, fallen out of love with their career, and they're looking at which path should I take now? There is sometimes that little voice in the back of their head saying, but I'm 50 years old, or I'm approaching 60, how can I be a viable candidate? What I help them to see is that at this point in your career, you have accumulated a wealth of transferable skills and experience, hard skills, soft skills. You are an immensely valuable asset to the organization, especially when you're able to put your finger on what is that path now, your career path, that is the right fit for you. You bring all of those skills and experiences with you now. And sometimes those conversations take a little, frequent conversations around that, looking at things from different perspectives. But that ultimately is the thing when women are in talking about the concept of ageism, and sometimes there's a confidence issue that comes with that. They question about their age. What they're not seeing is everything that they're coming with to this crossroads, and that's immensely valuable.
And so that takes us into some of the other important considerations that you have to share. What do you think women in particular need to know to make when they are thinking of changing careers? What do you think is important for them to think about?
What I help people to think about is knowing themselves. So the way that I coach my clients to find their career path is growing their level of self-awareness. What is your personality style? What's your behavioral style? What are your strengths? And the strengths that I help people get in touch with are their character strengths, who they are as a human being. Because when we're able to be ourselves and use the best parts of ourselves in our work, we gain energy from that work instead of that energy being depleted. When we know what our behavioral style is, how we think and process information, how we move forward with decisions, the ways that we engage with our environment and with our team, once we really know what that is, then that helps the needle, right? Our career needle, to find the direction that it wants to go. If I'm someone that is a people person and I gain my energy from talking with people, helping people, teaching people, for example, well, that gives me some direction, right? It gives me an area to move into, as opposed to the area of analyzing data and spreadsheets and living in that world where it's individual work and it's the people part is removed from it, right? So those are just some examples, but for me, it's knowing yourself, your behavioral style, your strengths. And then I do an activity with my clients that helps them identify their career calling. They create a statement that serves kind of like as an umbrella statement of what their professional calling is right now at this stage in their life. So for me, it's about self-awareness. The more you know yourself, the more you're able to look at your options and make a decision about whether this one feels right for you or not.
And I think appreciating who you are as well, right? So that you're not, let's face it, as we're building careers, quite often we're comparing ourselves with other people on a daily basis, right? And what you were talking about, that self-awareness, knowing who we are and appreciating that this is who we are now. We're not the data analysts we were years ago and we're paid for that. we now recognize that we want to work with people. So to continue with what you were talking about, like we've brought all of this, and I hear this from women all the time. There's no way I'm retiring because I have invested so much in my career and my professional development. Why waste that and give it up? So it's just a matter of appreciating it and repackaging it, I would imagine. Would you say that's what you help them with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Once they know the direction that their career needle wants to point, then we work on retelling their story on paper, on their resume, in their own minds, so that they can tell it in their interviews, you know, and really live this with embracing the best parts of who they are, because that's what they're bringing to the table. Yeah. And that's what makes them such a valuable asset to the organization. Mm-hmm. Let's have a conversation about what are the best parts of you and all of the treasure that you bring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's a great segue into introducing Executive Encore, and it's called Every Moment Matters. So I always ask my guests, please share the pivotal moment when you recognized what fulfillment looks like for you. And at the same time, I'd like you, or following up on that, let the audience know how they can reach you so they can benefit from your services.
Oh, I love this question. So the pivotal moment when I realized what fulfillment looks like for me. So I had the pleasure of going through a training with some of the wonderful folks at Case Western, and they did an activity with us that I use with my clients now. It's a visioning activity, getting in touch with your vision of your best life and what your best self looks like inside of that life. Mm-hmm. And when I did that activity, that was where the things that came out of my mouth when I was explaining my vision for my best life was something totally different than what I thought. You know, how I was explaining earlier about what my idea was. That experience was life-changing for me. What I envisioned was myself sitting on a beautiful terrace in Tuscany with my husband under an apricot tree, eating olives and cheese. And I had my own business where I was able to work in the way that I wanted to, doing the things that I wanted to be doing with the people, helping the people that I wanted to be helping. And I was able to do that remotely, no matter where I was in the world. In any case, but I could go on about it, but I won't, I'll spare you. But when I came out of that visioning activity, I just had a brand new focus for my life and what I wanted to do with my career. It was, and I did that before my diagnosis, you know, kind of like circling back to that. I knew that that was what I wanted for my life, but for whatever reason, I didn't take the initiative to make those changes. I made up a lot of reasons in my mind why it wasn't the right time until my diagnosis. And then I said, okay, universe.
Yeah, press the button. Here we go. That's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, many of us do vision work, but there's nothing to really trigger any action from it, even though we think, yeah, it's almost like a dream. But as they say, a dream is only a dream unless you take some action on it. And I think there's another saying that's a lot more eloquent than that. But unfortunately, sometimes it is a diagnosis, or for some people, it's something else, like change in family structure, or, you know, getting the notice that, or it could be a possible advantage as well, getting handed a package, right, to, you know, from your employer and saying, here's some money for you to leave. Well, okay, that's still a shock to the person, right? So you may be going through vision and exercises and never doing anything about it. So I think that's the message that you and I have for people right now. Like, no matter what the impetus is, it could be a new year. It could be some, you know, news that we don't really want to face up to, but wouldn't it be better if you took the action, or at least knew what the next step was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is so important when we give ourselves the time and space to be present in a situation and see what am I learning from this? What is this telling me? What action can I take from this thing that just happened to better my life? Because we only have one time on this merry-go-round.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's sobering, but that's true. Yeah. So, Grisel, how can people reach you?
Through my website. It's www.griselscarantino.com. And on my website, you can learn more about me, the programs that I offer. You can schedule a free consultation on there. There's a button. Actually, there's a button everywhere to schedule a free consultation with me, where I would love to have a conversation about your situation, what's going on with you, and how we might create a path forward.
Okay. Anything else?
I just want to thank you so much for having me here. This has been wonderful, Patricia. Thank you.
Well, like I said to you before, it won't be the last time. I know you and I have got lots of content to cover and lots of things that we can offer, right? So I want to thank you, and I want to thank your audience for following us today. When we post this video, I'd like to invite your audience and my audience to join me each week as I interview women like Grisel and other thought leaders about finding fulfillment and joy after 60. If you're interested in being a guest, I ask that you please reach out to me. You can find me on my website at patriciamuir.com and read the weekly blog on my patriciamuir.com/blog. And subscribe to my weekly newsletter every Sunday, except for last Sunday, because it's the holidays. It's a Sunday for self-care for my followers and my audience. Hundreds of women sit with their favorite beverage every Sunday morning and read my latest insights on fulfillment in life and work. I often refer to Grisel's insights because, this topic is important about looking at how you can take your career in the direction in a new, not pivot, but to take it in a new direction that is more fulfillment for you. Thank you and have a great day.